Welcome. r/malicious compliance. I don't care if he is dead, put him on the phone. I was sent here on a recommendation from another sub with a story you guys might like. First time poster, on mobile, etc. TLDR at the bottom. My father died on Father's Day 2012. He was divorced and living alone, and I'm an only child. So that means that I had to wrap up all of his affairs. This story centers around us trying to get his utilities cancelled. I called in to see what we had to do to get them to cancel. The lady I spoke with on the phone said to send in his certified death certificate. I sent in the certified copy of his death certificate the next day. The next month got another bill. I called again, and a new woman answered. She said that, because I wasn't on the account, that she had to speak with the account holder. I informed her that the account holder was dead, but she wouldn't budge. I had to make an appointment with a supervisor, so she could speak to him herself in person. I showed up at the Board of Public Utilities with another death certificate, and his ashes in the clear bag that they returned his remains in. I plopped them down on the center of her desk, and said when she talked to him to tell him that I loved him for me. The woman went pale, flew out her chair, and called the cops. When they showed up she claimed that I had assaulted her. And yes, my dad's remains were still sitting in the middle of her desk with the death certificate. The cops questioned me as to why I would do that. I told them the story. The supervisor's boss was called in, and they all stepped away from the desk for a private talk. While they were talking, the cops came over to talk to me. They said that I shouldn't take human remains out in public, but there was no laws that were broken. I said that I agreed with them that it was extreme, but she insisted to speak with him in person. By then they were done talking between themselves. The supervisor's boss kissed up to me and got it taken care of. But the story isn't over yet. I had to call back a few days later to get utilities back to the house in my name. When the person on the phone saw the address in my name, I was immediately put on hold. The supervisor's boss that finally helped me got on the phone. She sucked up to me and waived all of the fees that come with setting up utilities. Just as the call was ending, she informed me that she was again so sorry for the employee's lack of compassion. She said that the employee was terminated, and again she is so very sorry. TLDR, ignorant employee asked to speak to dead dad. Had a meeting in person, brought his ashes, got her fired. Edit, I can't believe this blew up. I'm so grateful for all of the love and support in this post. And for those who doubt the validity of the story, I hope when you are in my shoes and doing the same, that you have an easier time than I did. Similar thing happened in the UK that made national news. A elderly lady had died, and her daughter was looking after the estate. She had been on benefits due to her health, and despite the daughter repeatedly telling the Department for Work and Pensions that her mother had died, they kept sending her letters to say they were going to carry out a health assessment to re-evaluate her benefits. Daughter eventually agrees, waits in her mother's house with her ashes, and when the assessor turns up and asks where the mother is, the daughter pointed to the urn on the coffee table. It made the news because it is a perfect example of the lack of communication between departments in the DWP. We got a call from a debt collector several years after my father died. We spoke to them and explained my father was dead and he did not own the debts they were trying to collect. They informed us they could not reveal details of the debts and would only speak to my father. I again explained he was dead, but I would try and help. Nope, they wanted to talk to the dead guy. I suggested they visit their local church, get down on their knees, and go for it, then hung up. Yet another call. I basically told them to talk to me or fuck off and take the dead guy to court. They got a summons against a dead guy to go to court. I actually went for a laugh. When called, I explained to the magistrate he was dead. I explained the previous call and the fact I had told them he was dead. They finally admitted the debts were from several years after his death and probably identity theft. The magistrate tossed the case and awarded my dead father costs. I think he was fucking with them at this point. My fiancée was married for 11 years. She passed away almost 7 years ago. She'd signed him up for an email reminder from Hallmark about special occasions, her birthday and their anniversary. He freaked the fuck out on the Hallmark people when they kept telling him they couldn't take him off the list and he didn't have the correct info. He basically ended up sobbing on the phone about 4 months after his wife died from cancer, and they still wouldn't take him off the list. So he had to actually pay a lawyer to send them a cease and desist. He still won't touch anything to do with Hallmark. Not quite malicious compliance but similar. My dad's co-worker got a call years ago regarding voting. The person called stating hello is guy's dead wife. Their co-worker asked who was calling. Person: hi, I'm Bill from the local Republican/Democrat. Doesn't matter which. Voting thingy. For local or national races not sure. And Stussy hasn't voted yet and she's been a loyal voter for years. Co-worker: I see. When was the last time you have her having voted? Person: she has an outstanding voting record where she hasn't missed an opportunity to vote in 20 years. Co-worker: that's interesting. She's been dead for 18 years. I'll send you her death certificate to your office as proof. Person: oh, I'm so sorry. Hope to get your vote then. My mom, grandma who raised me, did the same thing. My grandfather died in 1976 and his name was on everything until she had major renovations done on her house in 2004. And the gas company did the same crap when they hooked up the line again. She didn't have natural gas in her name. She called and visited their office. Even paid for death certificates to send to them because our house ran on natural gas. She documented every interaction, and after a year of trying to do the right thing, she gave up and never paid for gas again in her life. She passed in 2015 and never received another bill and the gas was never cut off. Over 10 years of free gas. But I'm sure my grandfather is getting sent collections notices to his grave. When I was in high school, my mother was going through cancer treatment. Being the only other person that lives with her, I was her primary carer. She did a stint in hospital. One morning I went and took her some stuff she needed. I just missed the last train back that would have gotten me to school on time. So I arrived 40 minutes late and was told by office staff that I needed a note to explain why I was late. She was still asleep when I dropped stuff off. This turned into a massive argument which ended up resulting with me having an exemption to show up whenever, and the office staff member got fired. She is fine now, and school is behind me now. I was the sales manager for a mobile home dealership, and when people got buyer's remorse and tried to back out of contracts, a death in the family was a common go-to excuse. We had a family sign contracts, and about a week later the father called saying his infant child had died, and they needed to cancel their contract and get their deposit refunded. We commonly combated this tactic by asking for a death certificate. This usually put an end to the request, since it was only a lame excuse for trying to back out of their contract. So I pretty callously told him to produce a death certificate, and we'd cancel the contract and refund his deposit. About an hour later, the salesman involved came into my office with the newspaper. There was a story detailing how this family's infant son had been life-flighted to a hospital the night before but didn't survive. Needless to say, I felt like a total dick. I called and apologized for my callousness and explained that people often use this excuse and quickly canceled their contracts and issued a refund of their deposit. I had ComEd call me after I moved out of Illinois. They opened with "It's a serious crime to not pay your utility bill." I told them that I paid my last bill, but you didn't forward your utilities to your next residence. I responded with a confused "okay." A bit of a pause. "If you are in Illinois, you're getting your gas from us. We want to be paid for the gas you're using. Where is your current residence, so we can set up utilities and payment?" There was another pause and I just said, "I'm not living in Illinois anymore." They responded like they forgot other places exist. After some key clacking and hem/hawing, they said, "Well, there's nothing we can help you with. If you return to Illinois, please set up service with us. Have a nice day." I have experiences similar to ops when my dad died, but I still don't yet find them funny to share. But it's like they get trained into a little box and can't think beyond the confines of that little box. My mother died in Florida. I live in San Francisco. I took a copy of the death certificate to the post office here to cancel her mail delivery. "No," they said, "you have to cancel through her local post office." I go home, call the post office in Florida. "Yes," they said, "just bring in a copy of her death certificate." "Can I mail it in?" No, you have to come here in person to fill out forms. It's the bloody post office, FFS, and I can't use the, mail. Luckily, I had all her personal info. I held power of attorney, so I went online and just changed her mailing address to mine. Then after a few months, I went to the SF post office and handed them the death certificate. This reminds me of when I got a court date for my father a year after he passed. Long story short, a few years prior he rear-ended two young men in a car in stop and go traffic and they both had whiplash and other injuries, even though my dad, an old man, was fine afterwards. Not even a bruise. I called the lawyer's office and left a voicemail. I just got a court notice for the appearance of my father. He died a year ago, but if they really want him there, I'd be more than happy to bring his ashes. The court date got cancelled and the car insurance companies settled out of court. No idea what those kids got for faking their injuries. I say faking because people with bad backs don't ride sport bikes or take selfies on the road while waiting for a red light. Edited to clarify that the young men were in a car when my dad rear-ended them, not on bikes, and that said bike selfie was taken while they were receiving chiropractic care for the injuries sustained from being rear-ended. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.